Hello, my name is Tomato Basil. I post for the tomatoes. Okay, so here's the thing. I read 13 books in the month of April, and I'm going to review them and tell you what I thought about them and tell you if I like them. We have three separate categories. We have graphic novels. I usually also can put comics in there, but I didn't read a comic this month, so we just have one graphic novel, 4 poetry collections, and then 8 books. Is that correct? Yes, that's correct. Okay. So, I'm also going to tell you my favorite of each category, except for the books. I'm probably going to tell you, like, my top 3, just because, like, but I'm trying to get the Tempest arc on, I don't even, Net Gallery. I haven't been able to get it, and I really want it. So here's me reviewing big books so I can get it. That's the only reason I take this YouTube channel seriously. I also am picky on my pimple. What about it? What about it? Yeah. 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 Anyways, so the one graphic novel I read was actually one of my favorites. If I had to pick like my top like 5 books I read this year, this would be probably like number 3, honestly. It's The A Word. I actually did a whole short about this if you want to learn more about it. But it is a graphic novel about abortion. So if you're like ill, gross, I think we should just have babies and not take care of them, then this channel's not for you. Dogs. Hold on. Sorry, today's my dog's birthday party, and if you're like, that's the whitest thing I've ever heard. Yeah, I really have no defense. But it's very good. If you're like, abortion is a sin, you're stupid, and that's all I have to say to you. If you are a person who's intelligent, though, and it's like, I'm curious to learn about abortion. Here's the thing, abortion is really hard to research because it's such a biased topic. There's a lot of biased media, and obviously the book I read is very pro-choice. It technically is very biased, but while reading it, it wasn't being like, I hate everyone who's pro-life, pro-lifers are stupid, pro-choice is awesome. It was literally just giving information. And it also made me, I think part of the reason it was so hard to research is because I didn't know what to research. I didn't know what topic to pick. um and also it's just like kind of a confusing topic, again, because there are so many opinions, so many strong opinions about it. So I'm not going to call this unbiased, obviously, because I would never ever recommend unbiased uh stuff about abortions, because in my opinion, if you would choose to remain unbiased about a woman's right to choose about her body, then you don't have a right to choose anything. Okay, that's my opinion. That's my opinion. If you want to make decisions about women's bodies for them, or say, I don't think it's really my place to say, like, I don't really care, but like, I don't have respect for you as a human. I feel very passionately about this. But not only did it educate me, it also made me. I haven't done additional research yet. I plan to, though. It made me really realize like what I should be researching. So the topics it discussed mainly is what is an abortion and what's not an abortion, slash different types of abortion. Because if you don't know, there's abortion isn't just getting an abortion. There can a miscarriage is like a spontaneous abortion. It's technically considered an abortion in a technical sense. I don't mean to offend anybody. I don't think you should be offended because there's nothing wrong with abortion, but it's a spontaneous abortion. And what is an abortion? Also stuff that is an abortion. Using condoms, it's not an abortion. Plan B, that's not an abortion. It also goes over laws in different countries where it's safe to have an abortion, the history of how women have had to travel, and how minority groups have been affected, specifically minorities have been affected by having their rights taken away as people. Um, and then also goes into the history with Canada and the US of like a history of abortion rights and stuff. Um, and also it talks about sterilization, I think, for a little bit, which was horrific, but also very informative to read about. It's very good. I read it April 21st, 2026. I give it a 5-star. I am not the type of person that says everybody needs to read this book, because a lot of the time I'm like, I don't think that's really necessary. Everybody should read this book. I think this book should be required reading in sex ed. I know there's no required reading in sex ed, at least sex ed when I went to. My sex ed was really just being like, hey, use condoms. And that was it. I can't even fathom to know what sex ed looks like for people in religious schools. That sounds horrifying. Do they beat you when you say you've kissed someone? Like, that's how I feel. That's what I feel happens. But anyways, I think everyone should read this. It took me like an hour to read it, and I'm a slow reader. To be fair, it is a graphic novel, so like I'm not gonna say it's not hard to read, because I don't know what's hard and not hard for you to read. I'm just saying it is extremely informative. It's the most educational book I think I've ever read, like, just by myself. And also, if you're like, I want to learn about abortion, I want to learn about my rights, I want to know how to help people, and you don't know where to start with this book. And then, so the first thing I'm going to research when I start researching abortion again is types of abortion, just because I read it, but just because you read something once doesn't mean you like have it locked down, memorized forever. So I really want to like remember like the different types of abortion, and then I'll do more of the history and like laws and stuff. But highly recommend this book. If you haven't read it already, you should read it. Everybody should read it. It should be required reading, because it is ridiculous that we aren't being taught the history of our bodies and taking our human rights away. Anyways, on a lighter note, I read 4 poetry collections. Here's the thing. I have mixed feelings about poetry, because if you don't know, I'm working on my own poetry collection, so I'm not gonna sit here and shit on poetry and be like, oh my god, it's so boring. It's really hard for me to read a poem that really sticks with me. I feel like I'll read a whole poetry collection and not really be able to distinguish and like pick out what I liked and didn't like. And to be fair, the way I read them is like I read them in one sitting. I sit down for like an hour and I just read the collection. There's definitely more I could be doing to help memorize it, but even then I still don't think like with the poetry I'm reading, I still don't think like a lot of it would really stick with me. My 3 favorite poems of all time are Wild Geese by Mary Oliver, because I'm a basic bitch. The Dog's Hair, I don't know who wrote it, but it's about pet grief, and it makes me cry every single time. And then What I Mean When I Say I'm Sharpening My Oyster Knife by Eve L. Wing, which is like literally I think one of the best things I've ever written. It's so good. So good. I highly recommend. I actually want to read that whole collection. I just haven't yet, but I probably will this month. So the poetry I read. Oh, also I gave the abortion graphic novel, I gave it 5 stars, because yeah. The collections I read were Flop Era by Laura Eager, and I gave it a 3.75. Becoming Ghost by Kathleen Lynn, and I gave it a 4-star. Black Girl You Are Atlas, and I gave it a 4.5 star. And The Sky Was Once a Dark Blanket, and I gave it a 3.75. Cool. None of these were 5 stars. None of these were like changed my life. The last 3, Flop Era is my favorite type of poetry, which is about an unhinged woman being unhinged. I really enjoyed it, but again, nothing like stuck to me. The last 3, the first one is about a immigrant in the Vietnam War and like her parents in the Vietnam War. The second one is about being a black woman in America, and the third one is about being a Native woman in America. I really enjoy reading poetry from like, hold on one second. I enjoy reading poetry from like different walks of life. I think it's like some of the easiest to digest of like obviously I try to read diversely all the time, but I really like reading diversely. I don't just like reading like white woman poetry. Especially I don't think I ever read a white man collection. I don't want to. I don't want to. But I think it's really fun to just hear about other people's experiences in such like a beautifully written way and such like an honest. I think poetry is some of the most honest art you can make. I think it's some of the most vulnerable art you can make because you're not hiding behind fiction. And not that fiction isn't beautiful, but you're not like putting anything above it. The most you're doing is like making your pain sound pretty, but otherwise it is very vulnerable and just like this is my experience. And often I don't think they're disguising their pain to make it look pretty. I think they just are good writers and are writing about something that happened and they're doing it in a very well written way. So I really enjoyed all of these. My favorite was Black Girl You Are Atlas. I thought it was really done. It's also a beautiful fucking book. The artwork in it is beautiful. So I enjoyed all of these. I've never really read a poetry collection I didn't like except one I read in January. I will not name it, but it is really bad. It is really bad. But I also think poetry is the type of art that it's meant to talk about, like, I don't know the right word for this, like, it's meant to talk about topics that, like, invoke emotion. I think all literature is kind of meant to do that, and I also think you can write silly poetry. Like, I think you can write playful, silly poetry. But I think my favorite type of poetry is poetry that, like, invokes emotion and poetry that like dives into difficult topics and saying words. Sometimes the most beautiful poetry is the blunt poetry where it's just bluntly saying exactly what happened, no prose, no metaphors, just saying this happened and saying like the truth of it. It's sometimes that can be the most devastating poetry. My poetry is probably the only work of media that I make that is like doesn't have nearly as much humor as everything else. I don't think I could ever write like a serious story. I think my stories need to have humor except for my poetry. And my poetry does have humor, but I think the best type of humor in poetry is like kind of unhinged humor where it's like clearly like it's dark almost. Not that I'm like a dark humor person because a lot of the time dark humor is just making fun of minorities, but it's crude and it's like messy. I think that's the best. I don't think I can like joke how I usually joke in poetry. I think poetry is honest and vulnerable, and I think it is one of the most beautiful art forms out there. And I think people think it's easy to write, and it's not. If you genuinely try to write good, meaningful, impactful poetry, it takes so much time and it takes so much effort. And I also think my favorite type of poetry is poetry about womanhood and what it means to be a woman and the the pain and the trauma that comes with it because girlhood is never easy and it's painful and it's scary and it's sad, but it's also very real. Very real. So, okay, let's move on to the. So I read 8 books, like just regular books, this month, and I had one 6-star, one 5-star, actually 2 5-stars. Um, they were all high ratings. This was a really good reading month. Okay, so trying to figure out where I want to start. Okay, so the first book I finished this month was, I guess last month, was The Sun and the Star Maker by Rachel Griffin. I rated it 4 stars. I listened to it through an audio book. It was good. It was good. It's very whimsical. My favorite like subgenre of books currently is like whimsical fantasy books, like low fantasy books where the magic system's really easy to understand, but like randomly there will just be like a unicorn hanging out with the main characters. Like that's my favorite type. So this was really good. I did honestly really enjoy it. I did like it a lot. It just like wasn't like life changing. It wasn't like I don't think about it really ever, honestly. I mean, so maybe it deserves a lower score, but it was good. It was good. I will say that it was good. I read The Deep by River Solomon. This is a book about I'm trying to figure out this. Basically, they're mermaids that were created because they were thrown over during the Atlantic slave trade. There's the black mermaids that were thrown over during the Atlantic slave trade and then became mermaids. And one of the mermaids, I'm so sorry, I'm so terrible with names. I don't remember anyone's name in any book ever. But our main character, she holds all the memories for the mermaids, and it's like a terrible thing to go through. And so she basically runs away from her home, and it's very good. This book filled me with a lot of dread, but it left me with a lot of hope. That's what I usually say about it, just because, like, it's a sad book. It really is. But it's also so hopeful. Also, the mother-daughter relationship is written so well, in my opinion. It was very good, very fun. It was good. I read actually 2 books about mermaids. I read Honey and Spice by Bulu Babalola. This is a really popular book talk book, and I was excited for it. Oh, I gave The Deep by River Solomon 4.75. It wasn't quite a 5-star, but it was really close. This is probably one of my lowest rated books this year, the Honey and Spice. It's a 3.75. Not bad by any means, but it definitely did disappoint me. When I started it, I was like, I'm gonna love this book. I love the way the relationships between men and women were talked about. I think dynamics between men and women are really interesting, not because, like, they're my favorite to, like ship, I guess. I don't really care about that. In my opinion, and this is a hot take, I think, and I will not be elaborating, I think in every single relationship with a cis straight man and a woman, whether she is a trans woman, a cis woman, there is a power dynamic, and the man will always have more respect and power in like society, always. And I think that's something you need to address if you get into a relationship with a man, is there will always be a power dynamic where people will normally always, if something happens between you guys, people will usually take his side. I think also how quickly that power dynamic can be taken advantage of, and how quickly people can manipulate that power dynamic. And obviously that's not always true. An adult woman being with a minor is very different. But all I'm saying is, a lot of the time in relationships between straight men and women, there's always a power dynamic. Always a power dynamic, always. And I feel like this really explored in a way I haven't seen done, except for Normal People, which I still haven't finished because I don't want to, because I hate that book because it makes me so sad. And I was really excited for it. It kind of fell short for me. It definitely wasn't a bad book, but I think my least favorite part about it was, like, I really don't like how the main characters were treated like celebrities. It felt way too high school for me. It takes place in college. It felt way too high school for me, how the main characters were just, like, treated like celebrities, and, like, I think everyone gave way too much of a fuck about them. And it's not because I don't think they're good enough to care about. It's just, like, I think I don't know, I haven't gone to college yet, but I think in college, I don't think anyone cares that much about who you're sleeping with. It felt unrealistic to me, but also this was written by a black woman. I don't know her experience. I'll never know her experience. I can only listen. But it did feel very unrealistic for me because I truly don't think people care that much. I don't. The female friendship was really enjoyable in this. There was some really good female friendship. And otherwise, it was just okay. I read the Two Can Play Little audio exclusive that's no longer an audio exclusive by Ali Hazelwood. It was good. Probably my least favorite Ali Hazelwood, but he was good. It was cute. It was fun. I enjoyed it. And then I read Blood Moon by Brittany Lewis, and I gave 2 can play 3.5 stars. It was probably my shortest just because it was so short. And short books don't tend to have that much of an impact on me just because I like hanging out with my characters. But I still really enjoy them. I love a short book. It just, they don't usually like have super duper impact on me. Blood Moon by Brittany S. Lewis. Oh my god, I read this as an ebook. This is my only ebook I read this month, and oh my god, it was so good. It was so good. It was so good. I really loved it. I gave it a 5-star. I actually did a whole video about it, so I'm not gonna get like super into it, but just know it's so fucking good. I read Chlorine by Jade Song. Also did a whole video about this. I loved it so much. I loved it so much. I loved it so much. It was so... It has immigrant representation, it has queer representation, it has a girl losing her fucking mind and going into psychosis and thinking she's a mermaid representation. It is so good. It is girlhood. It's messy and scary and uncomfortable, and it makes you go like this. But it's so good, and I highly recommend it. It's the best book I've read this year. Genuinely, it's the best book I read this year. And then I read Problematic Summer Romance by Ellie Hazelwood. I have feelings about this book. Here's the thing. I did really like it. I'm not an age gap girl. I think part of being a feminist is realizing adults can do what they want with their body and also still thinking that age gaps are weird and make me uncomfortable. I think this was done really well. It also had really good, I don't like that he knew her when she was a child. That makes me really uncomfortable, and I think that's really fucking weird. I know they didn't really know each other. I know he barely knew her, like barely even knew her name type know her. But I really, really am reading really uncomfortable. So that's why it's a 4-star. Otherwise, it'd probably be a 5-star. But I feel very passionately that it should be revoked of its 5-star privileges because of that. I think this is her best work so far. I also read Deep End last month, and it was really good. I was like, this is really good. This was better. This was better. This was 100% better. I haven't read Not in Love, which is like the prequel to this book. Not really. It's like the first book, but you don't need to read it. Anyways, and I'm also currently reading Bride, so... And then I listened to an audio collection of Frog and Toad because I have 2 Frog and Toad shirts and I feel like a fake fan not owning anything Frog and Toad. I gave it a 5-star because it was so cute. I loved it. And I completely frozen. Oh, I like that Toad was the grumpy one. I thought that was cute. Anyways, that's everything. Go read books. I actually own none of these books because I literally used all of them from the library. There's not a single one I didn't get from the library. So. Okay. Love you, bye.